standing quite with the feet close-ish, and with the toes pointing in a little bit. Yeah. So what they say is the third toe, so the middle toe, which most people think the middle toe is the second one, but it's not. So the middle toe is actually pointing forwards. Now, what you want to do is really spread your toes. So the big toe is actually pointing in quite a bit, because when you spread your toes, they open out and that middle toe goes out. Okay, now just standing with the legs slightly bent. And now let's just work. So just working the knees in and out. Yeah. So here, pressing the knees together. That's it. And then slowly just work the knees apart until you feel yourself coming onto the outside edges of the feet. And just make sure your big toe is pressing down so that it doesn't come off the ground. And then back in again with the knees. So give it a little bit of a firm squeeze. Yeah, so whenever we use a bit of effort in Tai Chi, we squeeze rather than be forceful. So it's like you're pushing two things together and then melting into each other, rather than pushing two things against each other, and then slowly rolling out, making sure you press down the big toes, and just feeling that arch of the foot becoming strong, and then just roll in again. Squeeze, and then roll out again, and out with the knees, down with the big toes, yeah. And then in again, in, and squeeze it together. Now just try, so use this pressure between your thighs and your knees as a support to help you just release the lower back a little bit. So it's like you're relaxing here into this pressure. This pressure is acting as a support for the relaxation around here. And then just roll out. And again, just feel as though the knees are wanting to go on forever. So there's a point where it stops, obviously, because you can't go out any further, but you want to feel as though the effort, the mind is still flowing in that direction. And now use this structure as support to open this area. Okay. Just relax the sacroiliacs, the lower back, into this bow structure. And then just roll it in again slowly until you've now got this surface here from the knee up to the groin, the two thighs melting into each other. So now it's like your outside edges of the feet have come off the ground. Yeah. But again, you can use this as support for your relaxation. And then one more, just rolling out. And just feel it wanting to go on forever. So what we have to make sure is that when we stop moving, we don't close the door, we don't close the window. It's like we keep the energy flowing. It's just that the energy at the moment is flowing in both directions. It's flowing out from my effort, and it's flowing in, which is the constraint of my body, the fact that it can't go anymore. So if I can keep those two flowing against each other, then I won't freeze. So the big no-no is just freezing. Yeah. So just opening it. Pressing the big toe down. And now just very gently, just bounce. and just come to some awareness of your dantian. So your dantian is your center of gravity. It's the point about which physically you are organized. And again, once this is established, the movement, once the exercise is, and once you've got it going, and you're sure that this is it, then again you can relax into it. It becomes like a structure that you can just relax into, and then the energy will start flowing. So we want to be able to find things to use, structures that will enable my mind to become quiet. So I don't have to worry about keeping this going in order to have some reference point for my own body, for my own relaxation. So here I'm just, this is the exercise is actually the point about which I'm relaxing. So the more relaxed you become, the more it feels like you're dispersing. And so the stronger you actually feel this, because it's actually what's keeping it all together. So you just want it to become a meditation. And just have the arms out of it. Yeah? So you don't want this, you want the feeling that they've come over the top of something. So basically, you just keep it going until you just realize you're getting so tired that things are starting to tense up. So there comes a point where you just can't keep the relaxation going because the body's tired. Okay, and now the hands down. Okay, and now just feel this point. So this is your dantian. Okay, now just imagine you have you're a puppet. You're held together by a bar that goes through here, about which you can pivot. Yeah? And just slowly just bend forward. So you're pivoting. You're trying to keep everything the same, but just pivoting. So this bar goes through the dantian. You want to just basically, we're just looking. How do we actually, what is the dantian? How do we find it? Is it real? Is it just an imaginary point? So it's actually on this line. So just tipping forwards and just feel the balance changing. So part of your body is, so I'll do it this way. So you sit. So you're just inclining, you're just leaning forwards. Yeah? So part of my body is going that way. So part of my body also has to go that way to keep everything in balance. You know? So this is this part. So you want to feel the spine. So everything that's beneath my fingers goes backwards, and everything above my fingers goes forwards. And then back up. And then forwards. Yeah, so it's a bit like a monkey. Yeah. So this is what we're looking at, is just what the vertical spine actually is. And then forwards again. and then back up, and pause. So as you lean forwards, you just feel this, yeah? So this sense of you now have a direction, that it isn't simply your gaze, it's actually a projection of your energy that's coming out. So it's your spine projecting your energy forwards. And if you like, your tail is just balance. It's like the tail of a monkey or a cat. So it goes out and up to actually maintain a balance in the spine. And then back up. And then forwards again. So just feeling this pivot point. So just feel that as you lean forwards, although your gaze tends to go down, your energy is actually surging forwards. It's like your spine becomes like an arrow that's trying to point. So what's wanting to happen is you're wanting to do this. Yeah. So let's try again. So down. Yeah, so it's important to feel the tail. So feel the tail back, because the top part of the spine from here to here is obviously quite big and heavy. So this needs to feel as though it has that same meatiness, that same weight, to actually balance, to stop yourself from falling forwards. And then back up again. And then forwards again, so 1. And just pull the head right back. And just let your tail go back. So don't let yourself come onto the front of the foot. If anything, you're on the heels. Yeah. And then back up. And then forwards again, so 1. And then back up, just pivoting here if you can first, and then the legs can come up. And one more, so just inclining. So go for the tail going up. So obviously your head's coming down, so your tail must be going up behind you. So just try and feel that. And then you'll maintain your poise over your legs. Okay, and now just don't straighten the legs too soon. Come up from here and then the legs straighten. That's it. So you don't want to let the pain in the legs force you up. Okay, now let's try. So what we want to do now is try the same thing, but just get it to slot into the vertical. So what I mean by that, just feel this like a bar, a pivot bar through here. Incline forwards, let the tail go out, so just gently. And then just back up. And now just bring it slightly forwards here, so you get almost a sense of leaning back a little bit. Now, what you want to feel is how that intensity that was actually burning forwards when you lean here, that sort of animal intensity, when you when you slot into this point, you have the same intensity, but it's an intensity that's going up rather than intensity that's going forward, because now your spine is up, and this area here is like a cup or like a bowl that is open, that is actually really being pulled by something from up here. Okay, so that's what we're looking for. So let's try again. So just inclining forwards, let the tail go out. So feel this. You can feel it charges your spirit. It actually intensifies your energy. It focuses the mind. Yeah. Okay, now what tends to happen when we come up into vertical, that tends to dissipate. We lose our intensity. So what we have to try and feel is how we can maintain that intensity, but it's now directed upwards. Yeah. So again, so just pivoting here, and now just take this belly forward slightly, and it's like slot bang. I slot into this position, and suddenly whoosh, there's this flow, there's like an explosion upwards. Yeah. So this is what you want to try and feel, is that point where this slots in. Yeah, so let's try once more. So inclining. So, yeah, so this would be like the ape. So we're going towards a quadruped, we're sort of going towards a horizontal spine. So you think like, a gorilla, a chimpanzee, bonobo, they all walk with a incline forwards. Now what we want to feel is what magic happened when we hit the vertical correctly. So now just coming up, and just let this area just slot here. And then this actually pulls down, so I have the gravity, but I also have the levity, which is my heart reaching upwards. So this is what we want to try and catch. So the gravity in Tai Chi is basically my own Dan Qian, which is my own gravity, interacting with the gravity of the planet that I'm on. And the miracle of it is that when I'm relaxed enough, when my legs are strong enough, so what's happening all the time that we're not really conscious of, is that basically, okay, so this point should be here like this. You see I'm leaning back slightly. So when this is in the right position, there's almost a feeling that my spine is a continuation of my thigh. Almost like there's a straight line through, yeah? And then I'm just sitting in the legs and I can bounce. Now, because we're weak, yeah, because we don't have legs that are strong enough, basically, what's happening is they're always trying to straighten. And so this is happening, if I exaggerate. So my straightening legs are actually pushing my Dan Qian up and back, which is the exact opposite of what we want, because we want the Dan Qian to just swing forwards like this. Yeah. That feeling that you had when John used to walk towards you, it was like he was cutting underneath you. And I would just feel myself coming onto my toes like this, because he was just walking with this leading belly and he was just scooping underneath. So this is the relationship that we want. So that's the gravity aspect. Now the important aspect that we want to try and catch today is that when you get that posture, that natural uproot, so you think of when you uproot someone, it's cutting vegetables. Yeah? So you push, your elbow drops, and then there's a point where it starts coming up, because the elbow and the wrist are sort of opposites. As the elbow drops, the wrist comes up. So it's the same thing with our posture here. As this is sinking down and forwards, this is actually lifting up. So this is what we want to try and catch. So this is the spiritual aspect of our posture. Because what we want to try and appreciate is that when we get into the right position, what we feel is a draw, is a pull. Like there's a force up there, similar to the force of gravity that's pulling my dantian down. There's a spiritual presence above me that is actually sucking this up. So that's what the Catholics would call the call to prayer. So it's like there's this force there all the time that's just saying, wake up, it's not just you. Yeah. So what we want to appreciate is how these two things, the gravity and the levity, they're both part of the same system. If you have one without the other, you're always going to reach an end. You can't maintain for any length of time. So here I've got the heaviness going down and I've got the lightness going up. And so basically riding horse is just maintaining this structure and just allowing both gravity and the draw of the heavens to operate upon me, to separate out my body and my spirit, so that I'm not just a blob, I'm not just a messy lump. So the yin and the yang are clearly distinguished. And again, there just comes a point where you just realize, okay, the legs are just getting so tired that it's no longer productive to stand like this. Yeah. So basically, you reach the point where it's just a bit too much, and then you just push it for a few more seconds. Yeah. So there's a principle in the Alexander technique which he calls inhibition, which is basically you get to the point where you want to do something, but then you say no, and you just push it a bit further, and then you do it. Yeah. So basically, you do it when you're relaxed, rather than when your body is screaming. Yeah. Yeah. So just feel as though you're melting. So it's like the flesh is starting to drip off you. So the image that I really like is, imagine you've just had a hot shower, yeah, and you've come out and you're standing there naked like this. So you've got the water that's still trickling down you, which is an image of gravity. And then you've got the steam that's rising from your body because it was hot water. And that's the image of levity. So that's the spirit rising up, and you're just piggy in the middle. You're just in the middle, maintaining and balancing, equilibrating these two forces. Okay, now just slowly, just let the hands down, but keep that space in the armpits. Yeah? So you want this feeling that your arms are issuing from the opposite leg. Yeah? So you never want to do this unless you decide to. Yeah. Okay, and now we just want to turn. So now we're just getting into movement, into motion. So just point your index fingers and just imagine that your two fingers are like pencils and you're drawing a circle on the ground. And you want the spine, the projection of the spine, to be the middle of the circle and for that not to move. So you're just trying your best to just turn. So you're not moving side to side too much. You're just turning about an axis, an axle, which is your spine. So remember what it says in the classics. It says the spine is the axle, the waist is the wheel, and the mind is the oil. So the mind is the lubricant that enables you to turn freely about your spine. So you want this movement to be so free, so light. You know what they say, a fly can't settle on me without it starting me moving. So keep the legs bent. So sink and relax. So the legs are constantly receiving your weight. They're not trying to push you up and back. They're actually quite happy just to receive your weight, let your weight flow down through the legs and into the ground. So the legs have to become like porous. So here I'm the center of the circle. So I want to cultivate a mind that is willing to abandon straight lines. So Tai Chi is all about circles. But the trouble is our environment is not only our environment, but our way of seeing the world, because of course we see in straight lines. Our environment is full of straight lines. But this is why they recommend listening rather than seeing in Tai Chi, because you see in straight lines, but you listen 360 degrees. And so just let the eyes relax. Don't let your eyes catch onto anything. So you're still in the middle of this turning maelstrom of just pure movement. And again, once you've set the exercise up, you can then start relaxing into it. This is why it's so important to get the exercise right at the beginning, because it's that as you relax into it, it reconfigures your energy, if you like. Okay, now let's just bend the legs a little bit more. So you're sinking. So it's like sinking is never over. It's never ending. Good. Now, the more you relax into it, then the more it will start to wobble. So it starts to feel almost like the structure is degrading a little bit, but that's a good sign, because it just means you're letting go of tensions that were maintaining the structure. So you want it to stay structurally sound, because everything is in the right place, rather than because you're using tension to keep everything together. So this is why turning is so useful, because as you turn, you have these two forces, the centrifugal and the centripetal. So the centripetal just gathers you into the center, and the centrifugal throws everything out. So your tensions, your physicality, tends to get thrown away from the center. And your mind, the mind doesn't really like movement. So the mind is always looking for some stillness that it can settle into. Now, for the average person, the mind wants that because the mind wants to move itself. It wants to be noisy. So what we want is just to find that still center at the very heart of our movement and just relax into it and quieten into it. That's it. So just feel the air caressing your body as you turn through it. It's like you're having a massage. So there's something very healing about turning. Because if you just keep it up with a willing mind, then it will just, again, it will separate out the yin and the yang, the same way that standing with gravity and levity does. So turning throws the body out and it pulls the mind in. Right. And now just standing, and now just bouncing it in. Right. Okay, now let's just tap this area, and as we do, again, keep the knees relaxing outwards a little bit. Just be gentle, so just tap, and now just rub it. And again, we're just aiming for relaxation, the correct tone, if you like. So the correct relaxation isn't floppy and flaccid, it's tonified, it's toned. And again, just rubbing the belly. And then the hands down. And now just, we want the arms to swing up, but I want the arms to come up like this by pulling this forwards. Yeah? So I'll just swing my belly forward slightly into the legs. Yeah? And then just down again. And feel when you drop the hands, this goes slightly back. So basically, unless you're interacting physically with the world by bringing your arms out in order to touch things, you don't have correct posture. So when I have the arms hanging down, my posture's not quite right. This is a bit too far back, maybe only by 2 millimeters, but it's significant. So what I want to feel is that when I bring my hands up, my upper back has to lean back slightly to balance the weight. And that just brings this into a more central position. So this is no longer behind me. It's now right in the middle. So by bringing my hands out in order to interact with the world around me, brings this into the right position so that gravity can operate upon me more in a better way. But it also opens this up. And this is what we have to be aware of, because what tends to happen as we bring the hands up to interact with the world, we tend to bring everything onto this plane. So what this is showing us is that actually the hands are quite happy just taking care of themselves. The important thing is to maintain this, to allow my interaction on the horizontal plane to actually cultivate my rising spirit. Looks great. And so this sinking, this is what what the Christians would call humility. Yeah. And then the rising is just basically love of God or fear of God. And so it's like something you're no longer resisting the draw upwards. But it has to be accompanied by this melting, this groveling, if you like, this sinking into your legs, which, as you can see, is very difficult to maintain because our legs just are not strong enough. Okay, so let's try one more. So just drop the hands down. It's a feel how that it makes this happen if I exaggerate very slightly. And so basically, when you're not interacting physically with the world properly, then you're depressed. This is dropping down. So if you're like a workman that's using their hands a lot, or a sculptor or an artist or something, then that will naturally bring this lift through your body. So just feel that. So as the arms come up to reach forwards, it doesn't do this to me. I mean, it does for the average ignorant person, but for us, it actually improves this connection with the up. And you can feel this best if you actually work with another person and just bring your hands up to touch them. They can just be standing like in a neutral posture, and you just bring your hands up. What I do, I'll bring one hand up onto their heart and my other hand onto their lower back. So they're standing here looking that way, and I'm just standing like that. And somehow just having that person there just makes it all worthwhile. It makes it all real. So this bottom hand is just helping them connect with gravity, and my top hand, which is on their heart, is helping them connect with their levity, their natural levity inside. And then again, when the other person is there, you have a structure, and then they can relax into that. So it is amazing how, I can have a student and they're just not getting it right, they're so tense, and you just put your hand on your body, on their body, and they instantly relax. It's like you give them permission. So we all need permission to relax. There's something about us that feels that we're just not quite good enough. We won't get it right. When you have that reassurance of someone's gentle, listening touch. Okay, and now let's just come into one leg. So now we're just looking at movement now. So we were getting into movement by turning, but now, so there's like two principles of movement, which is turning the waist and single weighted. So this is single weighted. So you're just standing in one leg, like a stalk. So this leg could be up here. Just feeling. You want to feel what you gain by standing on one leg, as opposed to what you gain by standing. When you're standing on two legs, obviously you have stability, but everything is a bit clumpy and a bit together. When you're standing on one leg, you get this separation between your gravity and your levity much better. And then just step out and just move into this leg. And again, just. So this is actually very important. So you just want to be very happy standing on one leg. And the way to practice it is just practice the form. And every time you take the foot off the ground to step, just keep the foot in the air for a couple of seconds before you then place it down. What we used to do with John is sometimes we'd do a form, and every time you pick the foot off the ground, you kick, and then you place the foot where the posture is requires it. So here, I want to feel this finding its way through my leg, sending up another line. So the cross energy line, the long line through the body from my left, which is it's my right, up into my left hand. Yeah. And then here. So as I'm sinking down into this leg, something is coming up through the body. That looks great. Yeah, so. And again, these are like meditations. So you could just put the foot up there and just hold it for a couple of minutes at least. You know? So down and. Okay, now what we want to try and catch in this one is that the energy that comes up is not simply the rebound of your physical weight hitting the ground and coming back up through your body, which is one interpretation in Tai Chi. It's actually, it's a counter to, as my body goes down, this energy naturally comes up. But they're quite different. The two things, my weight and the energy, are quite different. So it's difficult for a normal mind to actually see both of them. This is why the mind has to become compassionate. The mind has to be able to embrace multiple realities. So I'm sinking into this foot, and as I sink, this is already coming up. So there's a sense that something is snaking up through my body, this real sort of feminine lightness. And just feel how open it all needs to be here. If there's any depression, if there's any heaviness in the heart, you just won't get the energy into the hand. So you have to be able to wriggle this energy up from here all the way up into this opposite arm. And then again, sit down here. And as I sink, just feel that to get the energy into my upper hand, I have to really pull this up my chest. So, you know what John would say is you need a strong thymus. You know? So this upper heart, your sense of self-esteem and personal pride need to be quite well developed without obviously becoming egocentric. So you need to be able to feel your own self in a way without it dominating. So, and again, just feel how it's always trying to go back, because my leg is always a bit of a baby. It's a bit chicken, the leg. It doesn't really like work. And so it's trying to push this up and back. So I need to let it just relax down and forwards. And as soon as I get that, then this sort of takes care of itself, the top hand. And again, down and up. So just allow your dantian to swing forwards a little bit. That's great. So you just got to relax across this hip, this sacroiliac, yeah? and then across the shoulder here, this shoulder blade at the back. So these are the two places where the energy will tend to get stuck, is when it travels from my sacrum to this hip, and when it travels from the spine to this shoulder. So we just need to just be able to move those a little bit, get a little bit of movement into them, so they loosen up. You can practice it with, like, you can have just like a broom handle that you have on the floor, or like one of those walking sticks. Now we're getting old. It's a good idea to be able to use a stick. That looks really good, yeah. So it's almost like there's a snake that's actually got some passageway through your body, from your foot to your hand and back again. So this path is clear. The energy can quite easily just zoom up and down. So again, this needs to swing forwards. That's great. Okay. And now let's just move from side to side. So just have quite a modest step, just a bit wider than shoulder width. And just move from side to side. Let yourself lean a little bit. And just imagine you're like a tower, and the tower's just leaning from leg to leg. And again, keep the legs relaxed. So in order for energy to come up through the body from the ground, then the body has to become bouncy, has to become like rubber. It's like those rubber balls, that you bounce and they almost seem to come higher than they started off. So it's almost like I'm deforming slightly, and so as I'm sinking down, the return is already manifesting. And so there's this sense of something flowing this way that's drawing me back. Yeah? So wow, something's coming up, and it's just taking this pathway that we've just developed through the body, and then my body now the secret here is just to be really lazy, and just don't let your body move too soon. So I want to sink down into this leg and just feel the lightness already in this hand. So this hand is wanting to come up because I put all of my weight in this side of my body. And then I just let that take me. Yeah. So it's like there's a very light, almost like a butterfly is fluttering upwards. And then I just use that as inspiration for the movement. I just let that take me. So I'm sinking down here. The heavier this side becomes, the more I actually sink into it, the more the energy actually comes up. And then I just let that draw me across. So I have to keep my mind here. And then it's like, oh shit, something's happening here, so let's go with that. Yeah, so you have to trick your mind into allowing the energy to manifest. Because the mind will tend to block it. Yeah, the mind is quite unnatural in a way. It's forceful and heavy-handed, and so the more I can withdraw, take myself away from the energy, the more the energy will actually start flourishing. So I'm just sinking into this leg, and then something is coming up here, and then I just allow that. Yeah. So just feel, you have to be able to just sink into your legs. Without that, it just won't happen. Yeah. So I need to be able to really sink into the leg. Now remember what that means. It doesn't just mean that you're bending the leg. It means you're going through the leg in order to make a connection with the ground beneath your foot. Yeah. So when I have that, then this will just fill with lightness. The hand that's going up, and there's something's coming up. Yeah? And so we just need that compassionate mind that can just allow these two realities to coexist. So the heavy reality of your body, and you've got this light reality of your light energy and spirit, and they're both there, and they need each other in a way. So for me to use my mind to choose one over the other is just the height of stupidity here. So I'm sinking here, and something just comes up, and it's like, ooh. And then I just let that take it. The images I really like, I've mentioned this before, but it's worth repeating, are the paintings of El Greco, the Mannerist Baroque painter. So there you see his figures, he painted figures of the apostles, of the saints, sort of in prayer. And so their bodies, it's like, when he paints the bodies, it's like they're made out of wax that's beginning to melt. So you get this sense of a body that's melting down, but a mind and a heart that's just reaching upwards. And it's beautiful. Yeah. So the only way to get the heart to lift properly is to melt down. It's like a contradiction. I love that story when Saint Augustine, one of his students said to him, what qualities do you need to for this journey that we're on? And he just said, humility, humility, humility. Yeah, so humility is just that melting down. Yeah. And out of that, this tower rises. If you just have a tower which is your own body, then it's basically a Tower of Babel. It just makes the mind too noisy. So this is just quiet minding. This swinging, this always wants to go back. So this is what you need to watch, is the Dan Chen settling forward. Because the mind loves to think that it has a handle on reality because it understands things. But the trouble is with an understanding is it's always pulled back from the thing it's understanding. It's a bit like looking at a picture in a gallery. You need to stand back in order to see it. If you get too close, you just see the brush strokes. So this is what we want. We want to see the brush strokes. So we want our belly to be right in the thick of it. So we're just surrounded by this turmoil of energy. We're not behind it looking at an image. We're in the middle. It's great. So it should feel like you just want to do it all day. And one more. So across here. And and one more here. And one more. Great. And now let's just turn again. So again, having the feet pointing in slightly and just turning away. So just going back to this. And again, using your fingers as like pencils. So again, having this forwards. And so so the world that we inhabit, conceptually, it tends to be like a grid. Like a grid which contains objects at various places. And those objects can be positioned by a set of coordinates that refer to the grid. Now, what that understanding tends to do, it just basically robs us of spirit, it robs us of primacy. Yeah? Now, what we want is to feel that actually the world is almost like a void of energy within which there are these points of intensity, which are the objects and the creatures of the world. And each object structures the world around it completely differently than all the other objects. So here I am the center of my world. Everything in my environment refers to me. I'm not just another object in the room. I am the room. And by actually sinking into your Danchen and allowing movement, turning especially, to just inhabit your being, then you tend to enter that sort of reality. And then you can allow everything else to have that same sovereignty, if you like. So the chairs, it's like they're all within spheres or eggs of energy. And there's all this movement and transformation taking place within. And then how do you navigate the space between you and the other? Okay, now let's try. So the same turning, what we'd like is for what happens here to be exactly the same as what we were just doing. But now we're just doing this exercise. So now, if you like, I'm no longer at the center. There are now two spaces that I'm drawing around with my hands, and they are now the centers, if you like. And I am just this overseer. So I am just this large, compassionate mind that is actually creating these two circles which actually overlap a little bit. And then I just have to look, am I giving preferential treatment to one of them? if one side of your body is a little bit tense compared to the other, then the circle that you create with that hand will tend to be a bit pinched. So here we're just looking, am I loving both of my children equally? It's like, so 1, 2. So it's like, being, when you're sort of looking after like a couple of kids, you're just sort of sitting in a chair or on a bench in the park, reading a book. That'll be the day. Playing on your phone, and the kids are just playing in the playground. Now, you're actually quite engrossed in your book or your phone, but actually there's part of you that's always with these two children, and as soon as one of them gets into any trouble, you just leap up, you leap into action and you deal with it. But the last thing you want to do is inhibit them with your anxious mind. You don't want to be too, you don't want to be a Jewish mother, heaven forbid. And so here, you want the same sort of mind here. So it's almost like your mind, you almost allow your mind to wander. So your mind is going on to other things maybe, but these two spaces are actually coming alive with energy. But the more you focus on them, the barer they will remain. Yeah. This is one of John's big secrets. Remember when we do pushing hands, the room would just be so noisy because he would actually actively encourage people to chat. Yeah. Because there's something about engaging the mind in trivial conversation that actually liberates the energy. So if I can just allow my mind just to relax and not try and stay too focused, then the movement regulates itself. The energy will actually regulate itself if you let it, if you get out of the way. You just have to make sure that you're willing. Yeah? You're not getting resentful because you'd rather be doing something else. So so most people's noisy minds are they're noisy because they'd rather be somewhere else. So basically, a noisy mind is a complete insult to the world. It's basically what you're telling your environment is, I'd rather not be here. I'd rather be somewhere else. But a mind that is actually just naturally moving rather than stiff is great. It's like you're just looking at, let's say where a child would, you've got a child doing this, quite soon they'd become bored. And they'd just be looking around the room and maybe say, oh, look at the clock or whatever, Again, just try and keep this still in the middle. So just totally efficient movement, if you like. So the only thing that's really moving is your two hands. Yeah? Yeah, so this is basically Tai Chi. So that Tai Chi is just you. So yielding is you allowing the other person to be the center of the circle. So I acknowledge, I yield to the fact that the world revolves around them for a moment and not me. And so in order to get on in the world, you have to be able to do that. You have to be able to yield, to actually place the other at the center. Great. Okay, so one more little exercise. So let's just try breathing. So just bringing the arms up, breathing in. So again, we want the 3 phases. Yeah. So there's a phase like between here and here. So when my hands are in this range, which is like normal breathing. So this would be like diaphragm. So let's just try this. So breathing in and breathing out. Breathing in, breathing out. Breathing in, breathing out. Breathing in. And now going down here is basically tightening the belly to squeeze all the air out of the lungs. And then you just bring the hands back out. Some air will suck in because the belly's gone out. And now you're back into diaphragm breathing. And then breathing out with the diaphragm and now pulling the belly in to blow all the air out. And then back in. Yeah, so we're using the arms a bit like bellows. Yeah, so you want the feeling that rather than your arms moving because of the breath is coming in and out because of the arms. So here my arms are squeezing everything. All the air comes out. And now as my arms lift away, air is sucked in. And now even more air is sucked in until I can't bring any more in. And now I just bring the arms above my head and more air will come in if you keep the airway open. And then that extra air will come out. And then this is like the diaphragm again. And then this is the belly expelling all the air, the spine crumbling. And then here the spine is becoming straight again. The belly goes out, air comes in. This is the diaphragm pulling down. And now this is the chest really opening. So this is what they call head breathing. So it feels as though you're breathing into the skull. Of course you're not, you're just, but the energy's going up there. You know? So just pulling the belly in. And 1. So what you'd like is to get it so that you're not really using your diaphragm. It's all coming from the arms. Yeah, so it's a bit like fasting. So every spiritual discipline that I know about recommends fasting at regular intervals. Because when you give your digestion a bit of a rest, then your energy, you just feel energies that are normally disguised by your rumbling digestive system. And it's the same with the breathing. When you're using the diaphragm, it actually hides a lot of subtlety. So here we're just trying to just get the arms to draw the breath in, and then the arms to push the breath out. So it's like I'm not really using I'm giving the diaphragm a bit of a rest. The same way you give your metabolism a bit of a rest or your digestion when you fast. And for those of you that are interested, John used to fast every Sunday. Like a good Catholic, like a good Christian. There's a term here called Jubu. A Jubu is a Jew who is also a Buddhist. And I was just thinking what a Catholic Taoist would be. Sucking everything in. I remember once back in the, I think the 70s or the 80s, seeing a program on the TV about a yoga master, Indian yoga master, with like a big long beard and a loincloth. And he could actually hold his breath for like over an hour. And obviously he didn't hold his breath, but what he did, he just didn't breathe. And so, you know, oxygen was coming in and out of his lungs because of movements that he was doing. He wasn't actually using his diaphragm. Right. And now just lift the arms up as we did, but swinging this forwards a little bit. And just don't breathe. Or breathe very shallow. And so just keep the airways open. Obviously, if you need to breathe, then just breathe. But so holding the breath is not right, but not breathing is fine. So finding some way of actually drawing the air in and out without using that coarse diaphragm. So you can use the diaphragm in a very gentle, sort of elastic way where you don't actually feel the air coming in and out. But obviously something must be happening, otherwise you'd collapse unconscious. And then you can just feel these, you know, these sort of movements going on that normally are masked by that coarseness of the in and out of the breath. Okay, very good.